Well, hello, good morning, good day, good evening to all of you. I see some familiar faces, also a few new ones. Welcome to the 1st of July Darwin200 Q&A, just 1 month and 3 days before the Oosterschelde will leave Rotterdam to sail to Plymouth, and then leave Plymouth to start to embark for a very big adventure for the coming years. As always, we will start with a quick introduction of the crew of the Oosterschelde and the Darwin team. There are only two, so we will get that done quite quickly. My name is Matthias. I work for the shipping company for a few years now. I've been sailing Oosterschelde for quite some time. And well, if you make a booking, if you want to give us a call, send us an email, or want your questions answered about the ship, the life on board, or anything like that, it's most likely you will well, speak to me or to Elvira, who is not present. And I would like to ask Stu to introduce himself.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. So my name is Stewart McPherson. I'm the project leader of Darwin200. I'm actually calling you from Montevideo in Uruguay today. I hope my connection will be good enough, and I hope it'll work okay. Myself and Eduardo are setting up the projects, but we only arrived a couple of hours ago. So if I'm a little bit bloodshot and tired, it's because I've been on a night flight from London for the last day. So it's lovely to speak to you from Uruguay.
Thank you, Stu. Today we will discuss the land-based tours in Brazil. Stu has been so kind to prepare a quick overview of that. And I will give you a quick tour through to the community pages. As the next Q&A on the 1st of August, only a few days before, well, at least that's what we at the shipping company think will start sailing, so leaving the Netherlands. The next Q&A will be the last one. And from that point on, we will mostly be, well, communicating via either email and the community pages. So I'll give you a quick tour through the pages. Stuart, shall we start with the presentation?
Pleasure. Okay, I'll just share my screen.
Oh,
all righty.
Please.
Okay, so with a bit of luck, hopefully is my screen come through. Can you see my screen okay? Yeah, beautiful. I always a bit nervous about that bit. Sometimes Zoom crashes, so it's always I'm glad to hear that you can see it okay. All righty, so thanks so much for the introduction, Matthias. So my little presentation tonight is about the Darwin Leader projects in Brazil. I'm absolutely honoured and thrilled to see Chuck is here in the audience. So Chuck, hope everything I say it follows on from our trip together a few weeks ago into Brazil. So as you're all aware, as the ship goes around the world, we've got 31 ports in between the voyage legs. And in most of them, we have projects which we're bringing in groups of up to 8 Darwin leaders to undertake. So hopefully you already know this from the documents on the website and from previous Q&A talks, but just to be clear, we're matching incredible young people to projects in each of the ports. There's 3 full-time staff doing this, myself, Eduardo and Rolf. Eduardo is also here in Montevideo with me, but he just arrived from New Zealand, so he's had a really long flight across the Pacific. So it's just me here tonight. So what we're doing, we're going to every single one of the ports in sequence, all of those red spots, and setting up projects. You heard in the last Q&A session last month, Rolf did an overview of projects in Tenerife and Cape Verde. If anyone wants to hear about them, we've recorded it as always, and the recording's online in the community pages and in the Darwin200 YouTube channel. So last week, Rolf did Tenerife and Cape Verde to show you what we're doing in those ports. I'm picking up now with Fernando de Noronha, Salvador, and Rio, which is quite cool. Chuck, who's in the audience tonight, and myself spent a couple of weeks in those 3 ports, visiting those 2 ports and meeting teams. That was about 6 weeks ago now. And so, yeah, we've been meeting those teams, developing the project with them. So As you hopefully know from the itinerary, we're going to 3 key locations in Brazil. Fernando de Noronha, beautiful island off the coast of Brazil. And if anyone still wants to go, I think there's a place or two still on that leg going there. Salvador, then Rio de Janeiro. And I think Rio will be a real highlight. We've got some incredible events planned there. So, as mentioned, in April, Chuck and I went to many of these, all 3 of these ports, developing the projects, meeting partners, explaining what we're trying to do, and honestly, learning what we could do together with them, because it's a very collaborative project. It only works with the buy-in from the local partners. It's a longer conversation really than now, but in a nutshell, what we're doing, we're giving $1,000 to each of the 200 NGOs that we're working with. So quite a substantial amount to them, 200,000 in total. We're giving them a copy of all of the output, every single thing we film and photograph with the Darwin leaders, they can take a copy of, and all of the outputs support and showcase their work anyway. We did a previous Q&A talk specifically on the project, so I won't repeat it. But basically, yeah, they're looking at the shooting an animal or plant Charles Darwin studies or encounters, looking at what's happened to it over the last 200 years, what's currently being done to safeguard it, and what more could be done in the future. Well, to start, so leg 3 ends in Fernando de Noronha. So we arrived there on the 1st of November. We developed 6 main projects, and these are in flux. These may change a little bit as we're evolving, as the project's evolving. But Fernando de Noronha is an incredibly important island ecologically. It has really high levels of endemism. I'm sorry, this is the best satellite map I could get of it, which isn't particularly great. But the ship will be up the north in Puerto de San Antonio, which is a beautiful little harbour in the north, and the main anchorage point. Airport is in the middle. Around 2/3 of the entire island is national park and protected areas. So it's incredibly good. 2 months ago, I did a PowerPoint straight after coming back from Brazil, all about Fernando de Noronha. So for those that are on leg 3 or leg 4, if you haven't watched that Q&A session, do have a little watch of it. It's got all of the information you need to know about flying in, about the logistics, about the fees you've got, because there's a special permit fee you have to do to reach the island. None of it's complicated, don't worry. But just watch that Q&A session. I believe it was from May, it was the May one, with all of that information in. So Fernando de Noronha is obviously it's a tropical island. It's a beautiful place for wildlife. It's connecting flights back and forth to Brazil, and it's really famous for its marine life in particular, and its bird life. We've got an amazing partner, which has been doing a long-term study of the spinner dolphins. The dolphin population at Fernando de Noronha is the world's most concentrated spinner dolphin population. And they've been doing a really long-term project monitoring the impacts on boats. I believe Rolf's already allocated Darwin leaders specific to this project. We're bringing a Darwin leader from the Bahamas and connecting them with this project to look at the long-term population trends, but in particular, the impacts and threats that boats have. There's huge tourist traffic and fishing traffic as well. And there's been a big noticeable impact over decades on the dolphin population. So that Darwin leader will be embedded with this project, golfinho rotador, spinner dolphin project, and looking at their findings and their work. It'd be really fun. They do great aerial surveys. Chuck and I actually were there when they did a survey by drone, a really interesting project on the flanks. Yeah, that's the first one. Yeah, good progress the team there with Chuck and I. They're really lovely people, and a really amazing team. The second project is a really interesting one, and I think I'm really looking forward to this one. It's looking at the impact of invasive species. As I'm sure you know, on marine islands all around the world, invasive species can devastate the ecosystems, particularly here on Fernando de Noronha. Cats, dogs, but an introduced reptile called the tegel or teshu, depending on the pronunciation, has a huge impact. So this particular Darwin leader doing this project will be embedded in the team, looking at how the endemic plants, the seabird colonies, and a really interesting endemic reptile which is photographed here, is the easternmost native lizard in the Americas. The project goes to look at how those species have been impacted by non-native species. I would say the biggest culprit was this larger reptile introduced called the tegu, or teshu. It's a genus actually that occurs from southern South America. This particular species, Salvador Mariani, it was actually introduced to try and control rats on the island, and it's now an absolute plague. This is a photograph here, and it states lots of the animals, even taking the turtle hatchlings on the beaches, and the conservationists have to go control the numbers of them and basically remove them from the wild, because they are really unbalancing the ecosystem and putting many of the native birds and reptiles towards extinction. Of course, they love the bird eggs, so that's a big part of it. This project looks at a really interesting project in connection with the Shark Museum and a team of local divers. Looks at the conservation of nurse sharks and lemon sharks. That's a nurse shark on the left and a lemon shark on the right. And it's a fascinating project because there's a pool, like a tidal lagoon, that's a really focused breeding area for the sharks. And Chuck in particular has been kind of putting forward some ideas about how to do some remote sensing and monitoring with flotation cameras and so forth. And it'd be a really interesting project that will genuinely give new information and new data, because no one really knows about the dynamics of the breeding populations there. So this project will kind of follow the shark conservationists and look at their work and the discoveries they've made over the last few years, and in particular focus on this breeding, this lagoon here at the bottom. Which you can see on my finger, I photographed trying to right next to the shark museum, which up there with the arrow next. So it's really interesting to see how those shark conservation is taking place. The projects which you developed since I've been, there's coral conservation project, which we really interesting, and the health of the reef fish communities and invasive species like the lionfish. And then last but not least, a project that also has come together since Chuck and I visited, a really interesting project looking at octopus conservation in the waters around Fernando de Noronha, and the habitat and the impacts of the habitats that tourism and fishing have. So we're going to have a really nice rainbow of 6 different projects at least in Fernando de Noronha. We've allocated Darwin Leaders to, I think, 4 of them so far. It is an incredibly complicated process, finding the right person for the right project, and then working the right logistics to get them there and so forth. But Rolf, Eduardo, and myself have been working really hard to do that. This location we're going to look at is Salvador. Obviously, the leg after Fernando de Noronha, Voyage leg 4, ends in Salvador. We get there on the 17th of November. And the truth is, we haven't got so many projects in Salvador. We've really only got 2 main ones at the moment, and the possible research project that we're going to be doing there as well. Sorry, Salvador's a really historic city. Those of you coming on leg 4 or leg 5 onwards to Rio, you're going to have a great time. Such an interesting place, full of history. A lot of the streets have barely changed since Darwin went there in 1832. So it's a really interesting place. So I hope you can really enjoy exploring it. One of the first projects is undertaken with a project called TAMAR, and we're incredibly grateful. It's come together relatively recently through other connections that we made, that Chuck and I made when we were there. And it's an amazing story. This project TAMAR covers most of Brazil, and basically about 40-50 years ago, the team basically surveyed. We were well aware of the decline of the turtles, and they drove vehicles on their own without any support to monitor and survey and just find out what was happening to turtle populations. It's an incredible story. Basically, within a generation, people that killed the turtles and caught them as fishermen turned into conservationists, and now about 40 million hatchlings have been seen back safely to the wild and rehabilitated. This does overlap a little bit with Fernando, because there's a big green turtle population there that will probably build into one of the projects. But unfortunately, when we go to Fernando de Noronha, the turtles there won't be nesting or the eggs hatching. However, there will be some hatching, on mainland Brazil, Salvador. So yeah, we're going to be following the story of the project, looking at the work down there. These are actually photos that Chuck and I took when we were on Fernando, but a similar monitoring efforts are taking place near Salvador, and we'll be looking at those efforts and the teams in mainland Brazil. And the Darwin Leader here can be involved in the tagging efforts, looking at some of the issues with hatchlings on the beaches, with terrestrial predators on the continent and so forth. And looking at the conservation of the turtles as a whole. So there's a hell of a lot to do and see with this project. So it should be a really, really good one for the Darwin Leader there. Yeah. So which we are still developing. This is not yet finalized, but we're trying to develop a mangrove conservation project in the Bay of Dos Santos, looking at the replantation and the importance of mangroves for marine life and bird life in particular. But this one is a bit of a work in development. And last but not least, we're trying to develop a larger research project. As you may know, we've got 5 research projects along the voyage. One of them is looking at petrochemicals. And there was a very, very sad but interesting story of a Venezuelan tanker releasing petrochemicals off the coast of Salvador. And the university there specializes specifically in monitoring and looking at the impacts that the petrochemicals have had in the bay. So we're trying to develop that one currently. Okay, the next port is Rio de Janeiro, and very quickly to give an overview of the 6 projects there. This is a real highlight, and I have to say, thanks to Chuck's very kind efforts, we've got some sparkling jewels of projects at Rio. As I'm sure as you all know, Rio is an amazing city, beautiful city, one of the most spectacular natural harbors in the world, and it's surrounded by these spectacular granitic outcrops. But the city is sprawling along the coastline, and you have pockets of rainforest that come right into the city. And I mean, literally right into the city. It's a really interesting place. As you may know, the whole area was originally the Atlantic rainforest. And a lot of this has been massively impacted. About 70% has been wiped out since the time of Darwin's visit. One of the projects looks at one of the most iconic species in the Atlantic rainforest, the primate, called the golden lion tamarind. So one of the first projects, we're actually going to be working with the incredible Golden Lion Tamarind Association. It's out of Rio, it's a couple of hours out of Rio, but we're going to be following them in the wild. The population went down to a minimum of 600 and has since then luckily recovered. It went up to about 3,000, but unfortunately was then hit again by yellow fever. So these are some of the photos of the animals that Chuck and I actually saw when we went to check out the project. And the Darwin Leader that does this particular project, we're allocating one literally right now. This is a very special opportunity. Very few people get to see them up close and personal to this extent. You might notice these golden lion tamarinds actually have black ink on their bodies. They're tagged individually as a part of a monitoring program. So the Darwin Leader will be embedded in the association's team and following their efforts, looking at the different family groups, looking at the dynamics, and honestly, just seeing how the recovery is taking place. Connected with that same association, we developed another project looking at the conservation of the forest itself. So the forest within which the lion tamarinds live. This is a really nice, exciting project. And from my background with plants, this is one I'm really excited about personally. The Atlantic forest, again, is totally different from the Amazon rainforest. They're two totally different biomes. The Atlantic rainforest is like a coastal swathe of rainforest that comes down further south along the coastal seaboard of Brazil.
Well, hopefully Stewart's connection.
Seen the construction of a bridge with forest to help bring together some of those parcels of forest and allow corridors of animals to move between. And the team's got a particular focus with the sloths and armadillos here. In our budget, we've allocated $10,000 in the Darwin200 budget. We're going to donate it to the association to actually help replant some of several thousand trees also to help offset some of the carbon from the voyage. But it'll be part of this Darwin Leaders project and looking at the impacts of both the changes of species diversity when you start cutting down trees, but equally to see how the species diversity recovers in secondary and recovering forest, and as that forest matures and approaches back to good levels. Chuck and I also went to check out an amazing project concerning the Guyana dolphins at Sepetiba Bay. We've got a wonderful partner called EcoMar. They're so passionate. They took us out to check out this project. And again, the Darwin Leader, we're allocating this one at the moment. This is a really wonderful project for the right Darwin Leader. And it basically is looking similar to the project in Fernando de Noronha, but with a different dolphin species. It's going to be looking at the population of Guyana dolphins in the bay, how it's been impacted. It's very difficult because this bay has been severely impacted with pretty heavy industry. A nuclear submarine was constructed. I didn't even know Brazil had nuclear submarines, but it does. And that one of them was constructed actually in this bay, along with heavy industry, power generation, and all kinds of fishing activities, which obviously has impacted the dolphin population. So this particular project is looking at the sustainability of the dolphins and what can be done to mitigate the impacts so people and the dolphins can live side by side. The next project, I think actually is one of my favorites of all. This is such a cool project. So the Tijuca rainforest actually extends all the way down into the city itself. It's incredible. Rio's got to be one of the only cities in the world where you've got urban areas right next to rainforest, and it literally abuts it. It's pretty amazing. You can be in gridlock. In fact, Chuck and I were literally in the city gridlock, the traffic, and then into the rainforest within about 5 minutes. It's pretty amazing. Well, there's a bit of a backstory here. Charles Darwin visited this exact rainforest, and he was the last person to record howler monkeys in the 1830s. Well, he was a Victorian explorer, and he actually shot 2 of them. The impacts. There we go. I think recording started again. This project, yeah, we'll be looking at monkeys and also 3 other amazing species that are actually also being reintroduced at the same time. The yellow-footed tortoise, the agouti, and the yellow and blue, or some people also call it the blue and yellow macaw, which will be pretty amazing. And when the Darwin Leader is there, they're going to be actually participating in the reintroduction of those 3 species. So it should be a really good project to look at it. The last 2 projects we're still developing to some extent as well. These have really come together since Chuck and I were there, but looking at the endemic bird life and also looking at the mangrove restoration in Guanabara Bay. Those are coming together. Lastly, before I hand back to Mateus, just want to say we are so honoured and thrilled. We've got 2 amazing events, which are entirely thanks to Chuck. So I have to say a huge thank you once again to him. We've got an event at the Museum of Tomorrow, which is basically the equivalent of Sydney Opera House. In what Sydney Opera House to Sydney is the Museum of Tomorrow to Rio. It's in pretty much the most spectacular location in the city, and it's this incredible, iconic building. And Sarah Darwin has indicated that she may well fly out for us for this, which is great. We're just finalizing this at the moment. So we're doing a really wonderful event in partnership with the museum team, inviting some key environmentalists and conservationists from Brazil as well, and doing a really nice bilingual event, both in Portuguese and in English. And as mentioned, last but not least, we're also double carbon positive. So how you can be involved, these are the projects that will be taking place in the ports. As you may know from my previous Q&As, the Darwin Leaders each one is doing 3 films, 3 photo essays, and 3 written reports on each of these projects. Every day, for 3 days, each Darwin Leader project will be releasing films and the photo essays and the reports. So there will be an endless stream every single day for the next 2 years of these projects coming out. And to the maximum extent possible, we're actually going to be doing live lectures and beaming live talks with each Darwin Leader from the ship. So there's going to be a heck of a lot of content coming out. We'd love you to be part of it and joining those live Q&A sessions. I'll hand back to Matthias now, if that's okay. I hope that was a useful overview of the projects that the Darwin Leaders are doing in Brazil.
Definitely. Well, my internet connection just turned down, so perhaps if any one of you have trouble with hearing me, then please let me know. I will give you all a quick overview of the community pages. So I will start sharing my screen. Let me see. Let's see. Wrong one. Are you able to see it now?
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, if you all have received an invitation to the community pages, it's a separate email, and it can sometimes it is in your spam folder. If you haven't received it, please let me know tomorrow, or sorry, on Monday or Tuesday. I will go through every one of you to check whether you have received an invitation or not. But if you think you would have received it and you didn't, please let me know. Well, if you go to community.dutchtoolship.com, you will end up on this page. Here you can log in. If it is the first time you need to log in, you need to click lost password, because your password is automatically generated. So you need to send yourself a message to reset your password. Well, once you've logged in, you will find this. This page, and this is basically the main page. It's a bit like Facebook or other social media accounts. You have sailing groups. We published one for the voyages we are doing now, but eventually this is the group you need to go to. Sorry, Stu?
Oh, no, nothing.
All right. Here you can find a lot of things. You can see how many members have joined the group. You can leave it, but why would you do it? And this section is in particular very important, because here you can always find useful documents, general information about the ship. We always send this with the booking confirmation. Of course, our general conditions, the destination overview. If you click this, you will go to the file in which we have tried to collect all the tips we have for each location in regard to where the ship will be. Sometimes many people of you ask us about where the ship will be in a particular ports. For some ports we do know already, but for many ports we just don't know exactly where the ship will be on this moment. Well, some tips how to travel to or from, and other useful tips, or at least other useful information we thought that might come in handy while you arrange your voyage to and from the ship. As you see, we brought the community pages to life basically for you for all people joining to interact with each other. As many of you know, the shipping company. Sorry, is my connection a bit poor, or?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. No, as many of you know, the shipping company, we are not allowed to share personal details of other sailors. Many people logically say, well, I'm traveling to Tonga, I'm staying there a week, I want to book an accommodation, and perhaps people are interested in joining me because they're on the consecutive leg as well. We cannot facilitate that in terms of we can share your information with others, but we cannot it's a bit difficult for us due to the privacy regulations. So that's why we designed the community pages. Here you can yourself state, for example, Darwin Access for All, who is joining on the trip from Kiel to Den Helder. Is everyone else going from the Netherlands? You know, so in this way, and you see Miss Verdesseldonk is answering there. So from here, you can interact with each other and make plans to either travel to or from the ships, to book accommodation, or to just do some nice things while you will be together in the ports. It is also possible to say, well, for example, I bought great boots, but I will not be using them anymore. Perhaps I can leave them on the ship if someone else joining the next Q&A might use, or joining the next voyage might want to take them over from you. So that is the activity lines. Here you can read everything people are stating in a particular group. But once you have, I will not scroll too much down, but once you have found someone while chatting in the public chat, you can also interact more in person. You can I would add George as a friend, and you can send them a private message. For example, well, what is your email address? Well, that's stated, but that way you can make appointments to discuss where you would like to stay in the ports and things like that. You can also follow the ship. Here it is via the yellow brick, which will be tracking the entire voyage. Here you can see we're coming from France, sailed to Den Helder, where we are now. We are now at Sail Den Helder, a great maritime event, and the very last time the Oosterschelde will be how do you say it, able to be visited by the general public, except for the day trips. So for the people from Europe, or from the Netherlands or Belgium, please visit us in Hellevoetsluis on the 8th of July for a sunset cruise, a dinner on board while we sail for the very last time, except from the waving goodbye voyage and the Darwin200 voyage, of course. Well, so that is basically the voyage. Of course, you have your profile settings where you can add a profile picture or any information you would like to share with others, which could come in handy for others to find you. Some of you even present asked, well, I'm traveling to Rio de Janeiro. Who else is joining, or could you bring me in touch with others? Well, if you state it on your personal page in the community page, it might be easier for others to find you as well as for you to find others. So that is basically the community page. Here we will be from, well, starting in August, but most likely from today on. We will post more frequently information. The shipping company will do that for ships that information that concerns the ship, as well as that the Darwin team might be posting videos from the Darwin Leaders S2 expressed, or the letters, or the reports the Darwin Leaders made up, or just funny pictures from the ship. Well, so that is the community in a very short overview. All right. Well, as always, we try to address the questions you may have. Perhaps this you have questions about the topics. Is it my connection that is a bit blurry, or? No. Well, perhaps you have questions about this meeting. Perhaps you have questions about, well, the sailing voyages, the Darwin project, the shore, and we will also address the questions we received per email. That is only one, and I see that Stewart already has answered it. So Claire, your message is answered, right?
I'll just,
yeah, please.
Clear out if anyone's got any specific questions about either Uruguay, Montevideo, or the next ports, Puerto Madryn. Eduardo and I are doing Uruguay right now. We're here right now in Uruguay, and Eduardo is continuing to down through Argentina, through the Argentinian ports. So if anyone needs anything answering on the ground, if you have any questions specifically on those two, the locations of those two legs, so legs 7, 8, 9, please let us know and we can answer them straight away, because we're literally here on the ground right now. So just email any, either here or later, email them over. Cool. Okay.
I don't see anyone raising a hand, so I suppose everything is clear. Well, then it's a bit a short Q&A for today. What can I say more? Well, on coming Monday, the Oosterschelde will return to Rotterdam for the very last months. We will be extremely busy with preparing the ship. There's a lot of stuff coming that we have to take on with us, that we have to take with us for the coming for the coming 2 years. So that month we will be in Rotterdam, and on the 4th of August, of course, for all of you, you should have received an invitation, but please be present in Rotterdam for the Waving Goodbye party, as well as a week later or 9 days later in Plymouth, where we will have two moments to celebrate this amazing project and to wave the ship quite literally, to send it off for an amazing journey.
Absolutely.
I'd like to, or do you have anything to add, Stu?
Well, no, just going to add on the Plymouth party. So obviously,
Yeah,
Matthias and Elvira has very kindly already emailed it round. Just to really emphasize, we are approaching the upper limits now. We've had well over 200 people already indicate that they want to come. So if you do want to come to the Plymouth party, please do. It's totally free. It costs nothing. It's all included. You have free welcome drinks and canapes, but there is an upper limit to the venue. If you do want to come, just register via the link in the box. It's just darwin200.com/send-off-party and come. I'll just very quickly speak to a few of the logistics. Plymouth, for those that don't know it, is way down in the southwest corner of England. It is a little bit of a pain to get to if you're driving. I'd recommend not driving. There's really good trains from London. So yeah, that's much faster and easier to get down there, if that helps. I really hope we'll see you there. It's going to be a really great event and a lot of fun. So if you have any questions about the Plymouth send-off party on August the 7th or August the 13th, please don't hesitate to let me know.
all right, thank you, Stu. I see another question from Adrian, who asked whether it is possible to come on board on the 4th of August. Well, as you will understand, the crew will be extremely busy. It is literally the final day we will be in Rotterdam. We will have the send-off party at the Maritime Museum Rotterdam, who are very kind to offer all the people who would like, who we have invited, so you as well, Adrian, free entrance to the museum that day. They will have a exhibition about the voyage in the museum for the coming 2 years, and you will have the opportunity to visit the ship in a particular time slot. I don't remember it exactly, but it is in the invitation, so you can look it up and you can visit the ship on the 4th of August, but not the entire day. All right, with that said, I'd like to thank you to join this Q&A session. I hope I see you all again on the 1st of August. Enjoy your day, evening, or night for some even. And well, thank you for attending all. Bye-bye.